That's good.
Okay, hello. Hi, this is Elliot Fishman, and
Hi, this is Mahesh, medical
okay,
physicist.
so we're back 2 days in a row. You think we're gonna do like a weekly, daily show? The eggs are ready now.
Yeah.
Okay, so my hair looks terrible today. Okay, anyway, so here we're gonna speak. You can see on the green things we have. Hannah draws a new picture every time, but we're talking about dual energy CT. So, one of the things I've noticed is I'll just do a little bit of prelogue here. Dual energy is on the higher end scanner, so not everybody has dual energy, but at RSNA this year, more and more of the scanners are having dual energy. One of the challenges, of course, is there's a lack of perhaps understanding of the advantages of dual energy. I know for us in our practice, one of the easiest uses, and I always tell people the best use of dual energy, which nobody can argue about, is for bone removal.
Mm-hmm.
The K edge is different for iodine and calcium, and so things like the head and neck, no matter what good algorithm you have for doing bone removal, you can't do it as well as you can with dual energy. And for peripheral runoff studies, nothing's better than dual energy. We presented some work at RSNA talking about how, again, it's a little bit rough, but you can separate calcium and contrast. And so the question is, in peripheral vessels, can you really determine vessel patency? One of the challenges to date, and it's still a challenge, is that when there's good flow and there's a big vessel in calcification, it's easy to remove the calcification. When it's tiny vessels with minimal flow, you tend to overcall the degree of stenosis. But that's something that's being worked on. But I thought we would today maybe take something a little bit different, because I think a lot of people in the audience really don't understand what dual energy is. And so why don't you tell us from a physics perspective, what is dual energy and why it's going to play a major role in imaging?
This is very important because from the time CT was developed back in 1974, there was already a paper talking why multi-energy CT would be much even better than a single energy. Like generally when we do is like regular CT scan, it's set at certain tube voltage, means the X-rays are coming out with certain range of energies because we use what is called as Bremsstrahlung radiation, which is not one energy but a multiple energies, but we capture it together in an average and image it. Now, the equations of maths is written in such a way, we write it in such a way, the attenuation equation, to separate it with two different materials, bone and water, or bone and soft tissue, and so forth. But even better to distinguish, we use multi-energy. As a transition to multi-energy, the dual energy is a good stopgap starting point, and it has proven to show a lot of viable and very much nice application. Like as you mentioned, the bone removal program, which I think we wrote an article in the JAC a long time back, which is very applicable. And there are other applications which the dual energy has found a very niche application. So what is dual energy? Basically, dual energy is like scanning a patient at two different energy, getting signals out of the body in two different energies. Therefore, we can decompress or decompose the materials into three different things, and we can isolate and visualize the objects much more clearly. So the funny thing is, this has been from almost 10 years, and the technology is kind of uniquely different from each manufacturer. And that is a very uniqueness because not all of them have gone in the same way to create dual energy data sets. What we broadly classify is in the US or globally, there are four major manufacturers of CT scanners. And it is kind of nice to see that each of them have taken different path. So let me start with the fundamental technology-wise, how which each of them are different. And then we can come back to the application. And so there is a four different type of methods used for achieving dual energy CT or dual energy CT data. One is using dual source CT scanners, and that is typically what Siemens went with. They have these dual source CTs, which is a 2 X-ray tube put inside the gantry. And that's one of the easiest way because this will allow technologists or radiographers to set the protocol to operate the X-ray tube at two different tube voltage. Means we are projecting or we are already getting two different energy X-rays passing to the body, and we can combine the data and create dual energy data sets, and which can be displayed with multiple different energy stars. That's one methodology. The second methodology, which the GE scanners have taken upon, is Instead of having a two different X-ray tube, they still have only single X-ray tube. However, the X-rays, when the electrons hit the X-ray tube, it's fluctuated to two different kVp, which means at every point, the X-rays, two different X-ray energies, X-rays are produced. One at low end energy like 80 kVp, the other one is at 140 kV. So two beams are simultaneously produced at every point. Imagine this is like a radars, or like a light signal, a torch. You are shining on a bright surface, two different, like a flash point, not one point but two flash point. And imagine that flash is now going around the body continuously, and every point these two flashes are simultaneously seen separately. So one is a low energy, so you can have low energy signal coming out. Other one is a high energy. So you're basically flickering the battery like a torch at every point. And that is what we call it as a single tube, but dual, like a flickering or a switching kV setting. There is a third methodology used, which is what the Philips CT scanners have adopted. And what they have done is like they have continued with a single X-ray tube, and to create a double energy or dual energy data set, what they have done is instead of a one layer of a detector, they have what is called as a two layers of detectors. It's almost like a sandwich detector. The front end of the detector is capable of absorbing the low energy X-rays coming out of the patient, and the high energies coming through the patient is passed through the top layer and get absorbed at the bottom layer. So imagine the thick this two sandwich. The top one is like a thin bread crust, and the bottom one is like a meat crust. So there's basically the X-rays hit the top one, get absorbed the low energy, but then still energy passes through the thick one, and the thicker portion get radiated. So thereby, you are actually creating two X-ray signals, two energy signals, and then you can do the dual energy data set. The fourth method is simply scanning twice at two different kVp. And that's one thing right now Toshiba is doing, or Canon is doing. In the midst of all these things, what happened is, as you mentioned, these scanners are very expensive, and they're high-end. They are called as advanced CT scanner. They're very expensive. So what we have seen in the past 3 to 5 years, manufacturers are bringing it what is called as a poor man's dual energy CT scanner. I call them as poor man's, because they can use the same CT single tube, but they can insert a filter in the path of the beam, thereby what's called as an edge type. So basically, imagine you're shining a light with a torch, and you halfway through you're sticking your finger halfway through. So the X-ray passing through your finger will be one energy. The other X-rays passing through directly will be different energy. So that like Sumerian filter, and then other filters can be used to create a same X-ray tube, but you have now dual energy data set. And I think that is, and personally, I feel that was very nice and intelligent, because everybody cannot afford high-end CT scanner to do dual energy studies. On the other hand, they can purchase these type of CT scanner and still able to do dual energy CT. So these are the four different methodologies generally we are seeing across the field. So now,
is there any one, theoretically, that we got to be careful with biases, but is there any one that theoretically should be better? I mean, the Siemens would say as well, the good thing about ours is two X-ray tubes. We're gathering everything at the same time, which in some ways Philips could say also, right? It's the same, just one rotation.
So I get this question for every time I get this question. If I start counting the bars, I could have had like a week full of longs of drinks, because free drinks. I tend to not answer these type of questions directly. I'll tell you why. As a physicist, we know how difficult it is to compare from apple to apple between two different technologies. I would rather use what is the plus and minuses and leave it there. So let's say, let me start with the Siemens itself. So it is very unique. It's very nice, which have two X-ray tube. And the reason why they were able to do it is they use a very high technique, very high sophisticated X-ray tube, which has a reminiscent of what was used in the past in 80s on the electron beam CT. The same principle they've been using it. Because it's a small size, they could put inside this gantry, which is, again, it's such a big technology. Because of that, they will very easily set each of the tubes separately, different kVp. Then mathematically you can integrate the data. And that's where it comes the negative part of it, or at least the disadvantage. Because imagine you're imagining a heart at a dual energy data set, and you're trying to combine the data from two different X-ray detector, like X-ray tube data, it is separated by 90 degrees, which means 1/4 of the rotation time is what the temporal difference going to be. No matter how much you fuse, there will be some difference. It's not on the same, that the same spot is not hit together. It's like two different types, like 1/4 of the rotation time. But for a general student, we don't, it's very difficult to identify the difference. But if you look in more detail, the physics aspect of it, that's the physics of it. There is to be a difference of that point of view.
Okay.
That's Siemens.
Okay, so let me
Sure.
I don't interrupt, but there's a question from Ghazi,
Sure.
which I think is a typical question.
Yeah.
It's a really good question, not a
Yeah.
typical question.
Yeah.
You know, it sounds very complex and everything, no matter what vendor you go with.
Yeah.
What about radiation dose?
Okay.
Is this a, you know, that really it begins to start thinking, oh my God, I'm doing all these things. Perhaps the dose is going up.
And that's a very good question, because that's one thing which we also started to worry when we have like dual energy, means like what are we doing, dual time, double dose. I'll tell you why. The reason why each manufacturer, even though they chose these things, they've been very careful to get that such that the dose from dual energy protocol are almost same as a single energy protocol. They knew if you come up with a higher energy, nobody will use this application. In that aspect, most of this dual energy protocol, the radiation dose is almost same as a single energy protocol, probably another 10 to 20% higher, but not like a double this one. Like if you do twice, then it will be double, but otherwise, most of them, we can comfortably do it about 30 to 40% higher in the beginning. But now with all this increased detector efficiency, I'm beginning to see this dual energy protocol doses almost close to a single energy protocol. And we can design it such a way the dose is like at the most 10 or 20% difference, but not more than that.
I think the other, so that was a good
Yeah.
question. If anyone has any questions, now's a good time to ask, by the
Yeah.
way. The other question, I think, it's a practical one I know from the
Sure.
society meetings, is, you create a lot of data sets. So one thing is you have a lot more data,
Yeah.
which is both good and bad depending who you're asking.
Yes.
And I think the workstations, the
Yeah.
problem is workstations really haven't been designed
Yes.
to look at dual data, where you can move things around, and you need to figure out ways of, virtual dual energy and things like that. I mean,
So
thoughts?
I think probably we have discussed this many times, and we even wanted to write up on these things. First and foremost is like, these days I pity the radiologist. I'll tell you why. Because when I was in grad school, we do a chest CT, 30 images was there. Then I finished, by the time I graduated graduate school, it was like multi-detector CT came. 30 chest CT images of a chest CT came out to like 300. Then came out to 300, like 600. Imagine that now with a dual energy. You're not getting just like 300 images of one energy set. You can create about 10 data sets. Imagine now a radiologist is given in front of him or her 10 different data sets, very valuable information, but now they had to read this one and they get reimbursed of the same amount as what they read with one energy data set. And that I personally feel has been one of the hindering point why it has not been widely accepted, because there is extra work, but there's no incentive. And we have discussed that. I'm not sure why the manufacturers have not worked on it to create a way in such a way, like radiologists like yourself can just fly through these images, and at any time we should show different energies there.
Well, this is the same problem if we talk about 3D also.
Yeah.
The problem is workstations. I mean, I've complained about this for 30 years, so I don't want to seem like a broken record. But workstations or electronics replace film.
Yeah.
The problem is it behaves just like film, except there's no film. We're not flying an F-35. I mean, you
Yeah.
need workstations that
Yeah.
are designed for the new strategy,
That's true.
which is the dual energy, the
Yeah.
3D imaging. Not that it's some extra feature; it's all built in, and you have all the data looking forward at you. I think the problem is, I won't mention vendors by name, but every vendor, they're very old technology.
And
it's good for looking at images like you were looking at film.
But you're absolutely right. But again, from an economics point of view, let me say, why don't they put the resources in developing some new ways? Like, because it's in the best interest for them. Because right now the dual energies are done only about 10 to 15% of the time. And one of the hesitant part is because radiologists get like bummed up with reading all these images. So if they want to sell more scanners, more things, they need to put some resources to creating these new ways.
Right.
Recently, I reviewed a paper. This is a very interesting paper. The study, the authors, what I had done is like, with all this artificial intelligence and deep learning buzz, they have used an artificial intelligence tool to create a second energy data set. So basically, any CT scan, do a CT scan at one energy. They had done which a low energy, like 80 kbp. Then they had this model of this deep learning model, which would now flush out another data set at 140 kb, which is really nice idea because they had done what they've done is like they had some retrospective data from a dual energy data set and shown that to compare with the DL. And that's a beginning process. It is possible.
Right. And this is the people from Stanford. There's a guys in Stanford radiology who formed a company where they actually are creating images. Both they started with MR, I've seen with PET, where they can take low dose, low quality images and make them high.
I do not know because this is a blind review, and I like the idea. The concept is really good, but I was not sure because they had only shown this particular development for one particular protocol. They wanted to just like a head CT, and it's not that easy. It's going to complicate, but at least there is a path. That's a good idea actually to start with.
So the other question I have is, so one of the things people talk about and published a little bit on dual energy is saying, can we, and Satomi Kawamoto at Hopkins, the thing looking at response in pancreatic cancer, can you use dual energy at predicting response and all things like this? And so there's a lot of things people talk about where two energies or multiple energies would be helpful. The question I have is, and I wonder, let's say we did it on a Siemens scanner with dual energy, and then someone did the same type of process on a GE or a Philips. Would the results be the same? I wonder if it's the same issue we talk about with AI and radiomics that, you have the data and it's how you do it, but it doesn't mean it translates to the other.
And that's a big issue. The other issue is like interoperability. If a patient get a dual energy CT scan and with a GE scanner and they come to Hopkins and we do it on a Siemens scanner, will you be able to see the CT images?
I mean. Yeah.
And right now that is like the older time when the CTs would not open. And that's one of the simplest, that's a low-hanging fruit, why it's not solved. That's been solved in mammography. Mammography is once they went into digital, the workstation becomes agnostic. They can see any images. And that should be done because they are all DICOM standard images. But right now, I don't think it's been done. At least I'm not aware.
Yeah, and the dual energy becomes very problematic. And I think, probably what we should have worked with, we should have worked with a company like Domino's and got paid by the slice, not by.
Then, oh my God. Yeah, we would be like.
Domino's, if you order one pizza, you pay a certain amount. If you order 50 pizzas, you pay 50x, and maybe they give you a discount. But you don't say give me 50 pizzas and give me for the price of one pizza. And so we're basically in the business of getting paid one time. We're looking at
even that being scrutinized a lot of the time. We are getting how it's being reimbursement cut, but it's very unfortunate. They don't understand. We should bring not the regulators, the legislators, and sit with us. And if they have it like a chest CT, and we should ask them to sit next to us and show them like how much longer it takes for radiologists to read. Even the most efficient persons like you, then they will be happy to add in their bill. That's the only way.
Yeah, but no one wants to add anything to the bill. But I think the biggest challenge is, for the Siemens and GEs of the world and Philips, who really have gotten away from, remember, way back when they all had workstations.
Exactly.
And then it really wasn't, because they didn't want to get involved with multiple vendors and all these things. And so they left the workstation business. And now it's the Carestreams and companies like that, ACFA. But they really aren't they try to do basic radiology. They don't get at the front end of things. And so I think that's the challenge looking forward, that unless, the companies that are making the technology really rethink it. I think the same thing with AI, because I have concerns. If we do good AI, how's that AI going to be integrated into the workflow? Now, I have seen some stuff like, we don't use it and we have no conflict of interest, but like AI Doc and Zebra both integrate into
the other with respect to AI. That's very interesting time, but at the same time we have to be careful on how it's been quality control wise. So I'm thinking about like we need to develop some type of a set of phantom images, create a repository of ground truth, and that can be used as a tool to flush out any AI tool to see how they perform against those things, and then give a metrics point. And that's one way to go ahead and compare. The other point is like AI. I recently saw a paper, I think probably we also saw this in radiology. They have done a very nice job. There is so much variability which can trip a AI tool. Especially in CT, we can acquire an image with so many variable factors. And what they've shown is like, even if you vary slightly a parameter, like 5 millimeters slice thickness to 1 millimeter, the AI tool fails. Or if you go to a different reconstruction algorithm, it fails. So we are still in the beginning.
Or you go to a different scanner.
Oh no, that's it. I didn't even want to go into the different scanner, but
Yeah.
just so there's a lot more room to go. But I personally feel it's an exciting time for integrating this what we know knowledge about the physics and the radiology physics and the clinical images, and then the AI tech. So we both were at RSNA. We saw that new whole wing of AI companies,
Right.
and I was walking through them. And it's really interesting. A lot of the other groups which I never, many of them don't have any experience in medical science. They are trying to jump in, and a simple question to asking them like, "How do you verify your tool?" And no, ours is good. So
Yeah.
that's not the answer I was looking for. Like, how do you
Yeah,
verify?
right.
That's all.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
it's a growing field.
There's a really good article. I think
Yeah.
I've seen it from Dave Blumke and the
Yes.
other co-editors of Radiology in the January issue,
Okay.
where he listed 9 points.
Yes.
What it would take for an AI article to get accepted and what you need to look at.
Yeah.
And I think that was very well done because it makes the point again.
Yeah.
So one thing is, and this is not an AI talk, but so we'll come back to the AI at a different time. But
Yeah.
I think AI may be very valuable in dual energy, figuring out what the best dual energy is, how to do it better, when it would work, and maybe analyze what the best composite
Exactly.
images are.
It's like the manufacturers can develop this tool, use the AI to create a new type of visualization totally. They don't have to come back with show like 20 different data sets.
So I think our time is up. I appreciate everybody's attention. And
Thank you.
expertise, Mahesh. And in case you missed it yesterday, if you want to go, you can still look at Mahesh speaking about shielding, which we spoke about yesterday. It was New York Times actually yesterday as well. And so that was our special Facebook Live, and this is the one we promised to have.
Thank you.
And so maybe we'll have to come back together and speak a little bit more about AI.
Yeah.
And with that,
the other one is like a CT perfusion is one thing which is like which is very important because we got a bad rap in the beginning. And because of that, there's a subdued interest of using CT perfusion. I think now it's time to look it back because right now we are seeing a increased use of CT perfusion in the stroke study because there are a couple of New England Journal clinical trial proved it was positive. So there's a lot of efforts on this, which is we might have to come back on that one another time.
We'll come back. Anyway, everyone have a great day, and we'll see you next week. Okay, bye-bye.